Out on the wide American plains, long before computers and satellites guided the fields, there was a different kind of power. It came from steel, diesel, and the hands of men who worked the soil from sunrise to sunset. These were the years when tractors didn't whisper, they roared. When horsepower wasn't measured in charts, but in pride. From North Dakota workshops to the vast wheat fields of Kansas, a new breed of machine was born, built to pull, built to last, built to define an era. This is the story of America's muscle tractors, the giants that thundered across the heartland and changed farming forever. Big Bud 16V747. Out on the high plains of Montana, where the wind never stops and the horizon seems endless, a sound once rolled across the wheat fields like thunder. It wasn't a storm, it was a legend being born. The year was 1977, and on a quiet morning in Havre, Montana, the biggest tractor in the world rumbled to life for the very first time. They called it the Big Bud 16V747, and the name said it all. Standing more than 14 feet tall and stretching over 27 feet long, this white-painted giant wasn't just a tractor, it was a moving monument to American horsepower. Built by the brothers Ron and Randy Harmon, the machine was commissioned by the Rossi brothers, cotton farmers who needed something stronger than anything the market could offer. And so, from a small shop in Montana, came the largest farm tractor the world had ever seen. Under its massive hood lay a 16-cylinder Detroit diesel 16V92 TTA engine, over 1,100 horsepower of raw, two-stroke power. Each piston larger than a coffee mug, each combustion a small explosion of torque. The engine note was a deep, steady growl that shook fence posts and sent flocks of birds into the sky. Farmers miles away could tell, Big Bud was working that day. Its purpose was simple yet extraordinary, to pull 50-foot cultivators across vast Montana fields, cutting, turning, and shaping the land that fed America. The frame, hand-welded from thick steel, carried a twin-disc 8-speed powershift transmission, four-wheel drive, and tires taller than a man. Every component was overbuilt, designed not just to work hard but to keep working for decades. To those who saw it, Big Bud was more than machinery, it was a statement. It stood for the belief that with skill, steel, and stubborn determination, American farmers could build anything they needed with their own hands. While corporations competed in horsepower races, Big Bud was independent, handcrafted, and proud, a true muscle tractor of the plains. In the years that followed, the 16V747 became a legend. It moved between farms, plowed thousands of acres, and became a star attraction at state fairs and tractor shows. When the modern era of GPS and electronics arrived, Big Bud refused to fade away. Restored and displayed with care, it remains today in Montana a monument to mechanical ambition. For many who worked the land in those days, Big Bud wasn't just the biggest tractor, they called it the heartbeat of the prairie. When its diesel thunder rolled across the open fields, it wasn't noise. It was pride. It was power. It was America at full throttle. Steiger Bearcat II ST-225. Long before the Big Bud thundered across the plains, another beast was born in a quiet shop in Fargo, North Dakota. It didn't come from a factory line or a corporate lab. It came from farmers, men who knew exactly what the land demanded. Its name was Steiger Bearcat, and it would become the green iron pioneer of four-wheel drive muscle. In the early 1970s, American agriculture was changing fast. Farms were getting bigger, fields wider, and the old two-wheel tractors simply couldn't keep up. The Steiger brothers, Doug and Maurice, were mechanics and farmers at heart. On long winter nights, they began building a new kind of tractor in their own barn. The result was raw, square-shouldered power, the Bearcat II ST-225. Under its hood lay the legendary Caterpillar 3306 turbo diesel, a 10.5-liter six-cylinder engine that produced around 225 horsepower, but it wasn't the numbers that mattered. It was the torque, that deep, endless pull that could drag a 12-bottom plow through gumbo soil without slowing down. With 4 massive equal-sized tires, full-time 4WD, and a frame built like a bridge girder, the Bearcat didn't spin, it gripped, clawed, and climbed. Everything about the machine was straightforward and strong. No chrome, no electronics, no pretense. The cab was plain steel with a view of the horizon on every side. A farmer could fix nearly every part with the tools he already owned. And that's what made the Steiger special, it was built by the people who used it. When you climbed into a Bearcat, you weren't sitting in a product. You were sitting in someone's dream, welded together by hand. The Steiger's green paint became a symbol of independence. In a time when farming was turning corporate, Steiger tractors stood for self-reliance and grit. They were machines that said, "We can build our own." The company grew from that small barn into one of America's most respected tractor makers, its influence stretching from the Dakotas to Canada and beyond. By the time the Bearcat II arrived, Steiger had refined its craft. The tractor's twin-disc powershift transmission made shifting smoother, and its heavy-duty articulation joint allowed it to pivot gracefully even with heavy equipment in tow. It was the perfect mix of simplicity and might, an engineer's handshake with the soil. To farmers who worked behind its wheel, the Bearcat was more than a machine, it was a partner. The low growl of that cat engine on a cold morning was as comforting as coffee in the thermos. Every start, every pull, every mile left a mark on memory. And though decades have passed, the sight of that green frame still stirs something deep. Because the Steiger Bearcat II didn't just till fields, it tilled pride into the heartland. It proved that true muscle doesn't come from factories. It comes from farmers, steel, and the courage to build your own legend. Allis-Chalmers 8550. By the mid-1970s, American farms had grown vast, and the race for power was in full swing. Out of the orange-painted foundries of West Allis, Wisconsin, came a machine that looked more like a battle tank than a tractor. Its name alone sounded like authority, the Allis-Chalmers 8550, known proudly among farmers as the Beast from West Allis. This was Allis-Chalmers' bold answer to the call for raw, four-wheel drive muscle. Built between 1976 and 1978, the 8550 stood as the most powerful tractor the company ever produced. Under its broad hood growled a 12-liter turbocharged diesel V8, capable of around 300 horsepower, numbers that turned heads and bent steel. When that big turbo spooled up, the roar rolled across the fields like thunder over Lake Michigan. Its design was pure 1970s muscle, sharp edges, high stance, square-shouldered cab sitting atop massive equal-sized tires. The driver's seat towered above the rows, surrounded by a panoramic view of the prairie. Inside, there was nothing fancy, just levers, gauges, and the steady thrum of the V8 beneath your feet. The 8550 didn't promise comfort. It promised control. Mechanically, it was a masterpiece of brute engineering, a twin-disc powershift transmission, planetary final drives, and full-time 4WD that bit into the soil with relentless grip. Each of its 30-inch tires carried the weight of progress and pride. On the drawbar, it could pull over 20 tons without hesitation. The smell of hot oil and fresh-turned earth lingered long after the engine shut down. But beyond the numbers, the 8550 captured the spirit of its time, a period when American industry still built things heavy, loud, and meant to last. Farmers who drove it remember that orange paint glowing in the morning sun, a flash of color against endless fields of green. To them, the Allis wasn't just horsepower, it was hope that hard work and good steel could keep up with a world that was changing fast. The 8550 wasn't without its challenges. Its massive engine demanded fuel, and the late 70s energy crisis made diesel a precious commodity. Yet even in those hard years, the sight of an Allis-Chalmers 8550 lumbering down a dirt road reminded people what American ingenuity looked like: big, bold, and unapologetic. Today, restored 8550s appear at farm shows and heritage events, their orange paint polished to a mirror shine. Old farmers still gather around them, running a hand along the hood, remembering the vibration that once traveled up through the seat and into their bones. The Allis-Chalmers 8550 did more than pull plows. It pulled an entire generation into the age of power. And when its deep V8 roar faded across the prairie, it left behind not silence, but pride. Ford FW60. By the end of the 1970s, the color of power on American farms wasn't only green or orange. Out of a long tradition of trucks and tractors came a new shade of muscle, Ford Blue. And leading the charge across the wheat belt was the Ford FW60, the heaviest and strongest machine ever to wear the blue oval. The late 70s were restless years, oil shocks, tight margins, and bigger acres to till. Farmers needed brawn and reliability. Ford, already a household name on every rural road, stepped boldly into the four-wheel drive arena. Built in cooperation with Versatile of Canada, the FW series carried the Ford nameplate but kept the rugged heart of prairie engineering. At the top stood the FW60, the blue giant that announced, "Ford means business." Beneath it squared off would beat a Cummins NTA 903 V8 diesel, delivering close to 335 horsepower and a wall of torque that could make the soil tremble. Coupled to a fuller 12-speed transmission and permanent 4WD, the FW60 was less a tractor and more a freight engine on tires. Each gear change came with a deep mechanical clunk, a sound that told the operator he was moving serious iron. The cab rose high, boxy, and bright with Ford's trademark blue paint glinting in the sun. Visibility was near total. From that seat, a farmer could see the horizon stretch for miles and feel, for once, like he ruled it. Simple gauges, steel levers, no frills, everything about the FW60 said function first. It wasn't built for comfort, it was built to conquer ground. When the big Cummins came alive, the sound was unmistakable, a heavy-breathing diesel rumble that rolled like thunder across the plains. Dust followed in its wake, curling into the golden air as it pulled implements 40 feet wide. For many farmers, that sight, a streak of Ford blue under a summer sky, became the picture of progress itself. The FW60 symbolized a turning point, corporate engineering meeting grassroots grit. It proved that even a giant like Ford could speak the language of the land, torque, traction, and trust. It was dependable, reparable, and carried with it the reassurance of a company that had powered America's wheels for generations. Today, the surviving FW60s still draw crowds at heritage shows, their blue paint faded but proud. Older farmers stop, tilt their caps, and smile. They remember that steady pull, the hum through the steering column, the smell of hot diesel on a cold morning. The Ford FW60 didn't just pull plows, it pulled a legacy forward, proving that the heart of American farming could beat strong in blue steel. Versatile 1150. Out on the Canadian prairies, where the land stretches flat and endless beneath a wide blue sky, there was a machine that became the farmer's most trusted ally. It didn't wear fancy chrome or boast a famous logo, just bold red and yellow paint, and a promise written in steel. Its name was Versatile 1150, and it earned its reputation the old-fashioned way, by working harder than anything else in the field. In the late 1970s, Versatile had already made its mark as the first company to mass-produce four-wheel drive tractors at an affordable price. But the 1150 was different. This was their flagship, their powerhouse, the culmination of everything the engineers in Winnipeg had learned about building muscle for the plains. It was, quite simply, one of the strongest production tractors of its era. At its heart lay a Cummins VT 903 V8 turbo diesel, a 14.8-liter engine pushing out around 330 horsepower. The sound was unmistakable, a deep, even roar that rolled across the prairie like a freight train. The transmission was fuller 12-speed manual, tough and straightforward, with every gear clicking into place like the bolt of a rifle. When the operator eased the clutch, the big Versatile dug in and went to work, steady, relentless, unshakable. Farmers loved it for exactly that reason. The 1150 wasn't a showpiece, it was a partner. It didn't break often, and when it did, a man with a wrench and a good sense of timing could fix it right there in the yard. No computer diagnostics, no mystery, just gears, steel, and common sense. The simplicity was its strength, and that strength was legendary. Its cab, though spare, gave a commanding view of the horizon. The square body and bright red and yellow colors made it stand out like a barn fire against golden wheat. Children who grew up in those years remember watching their fathers from a distance, a lone red dot crawling across the field all day, the rhythmic hum of the Cummins V8 echoing through summer air. To them, that sound was the heartbeat of harvest. The versatile 1150 wasn't the biggest, nor the flashiest, but it captured the essence of prairie farming, independence, durability, and pride. Long after other machines retired, many 1150s kept working, pulling air seeders and cultivators that were never supposed to last half a century. They stood as proof that good engineering and honest labor could outlive fashion and time. Today, when one fires up at a heritage show, the crowd always turns. The diesel coughs, the turbo whistles, and for a moment, everyone is transported back to those wide-open fields where horsepower met heart. The versatile 1150 didn't just work the land, it defined it. Built by the prairies, for the prairies, it carried the true spirit of muscle farming, strong, steady, and proud to the last bolt.
Tires.
As the last echoes of the versatile diesel faded across the plains, a new age was already rising, one of computers, precision, and quiet efficiency. The great muscle tractors of the 1970s gave way to technology and comfort, but they left behind something that no circuit board could ever replace: spirit. Those machines, the Big Bud, the Steiger, the Allis-Chalmers, the Ford, and the Versatile, were not just tools of the trade. They were companions through storms and seasons. They turned miles of soil, fed families, and forged memories that still live in the hearts of the men and women who drove them. Each roar of diesel was a promise that hard work and ingenuity could move mountains of earth and build a nation. Today, most of them rest in museums, barns, or the proud hands of collectors. But when one of those giants starts again, when the old engines catch and the ground trembles beneath their tires, time stands still. For a brief, beautiful moment, the past returns. You can smell the diesel, feel the rumble, and remember what it meant to build something with your own hands. These 5 tractors were more than machines. They were muscle, memory, and America's heartbeat on steel wheels. And if you've ever felt that same pride, watching the sun rise over the fields, hearing that first crank of an old diesel, then you're part of this legacy, too. Before you go, take a moment to share this story. Hit like, subscribe, and tell us. Which of these muscle tractors thundered through your fields? Because every sound, every memory, and every turn of the soil keeps this history alive. This is more than horsepower. This is heritage.